Willkommen im Arnold Schönberg Center und zur Ausstellung Arnold Schönberg, wer ich bin. Welcome to the Arnold Schönberg Center and to the exhibition Arnold Schönberg, Who I Am. Benvenuti all'Arnold Schönberg Center e alla mostra Arnold Schönberg, Chi sono? Hinter mir sehen Sie das letzte Arbeitszimmer meines Vaters in Los Angeles. Ich werde einige Möbelstücke und Objekte kommentieren und Ihnen erklären und erzählen, wie mein Vater sie benutzt hat, auch beim Komponieren. Behind me, you see a replica of my father's last study in Los Angeles. I will be commenting on the objects and the furniture in this room and telling you about how he used these when composing. My father's bookbinding tools, some of the books that he bound himself, and a press. This is the forerunner of the photocopy machine. It is a very simple machine which treated light-sensitive paper. He used this to make copies of his lectures or of his sketches, his music. In those days, we had no copy machines. In my father's music library were all of the scores from ancient to classical to modern music. And he often showed his pupils the reason why he could tell them what they could do in their compositions was because he knew why all of these composers had put every single note in their compositions. This large Webster library dictionary was always open behind my father's desk because when he wrote in English, he wanted to find the exact proper word to use. He often used some very obsolete words, but they were probably the right one. He made many sets of chess games, and besides the chess that he invented, which you will see in the exhibition, he made the regular chess pieces out of paper and paper mache, all kinds of recycled materials. He also made several pocket chess sets, which he gave as presents to people. And they were very, very nicely made. He was so good with his hands. I have to say something about this furniture because a lot of it was designed by him, and some of the pieces were made by him, actually. This cupboard was where he kept all of the important documents. And, you know, in a life that starts in Vienna and goes on to Berlin and France and New York and Los Angeles, there were a lot of documents of his life that are very important and that he luckily kept under lock and key, and which are now here in the Arnold Schönberg archives. We were always very fascinated by all the pens and pencils in our father's workroom. He was very thrifty about his use of pencils. When they became too short to hold in your hand, he would make an extension out of paper, cardboard. He also invented the adhesive tape dispenser, which in those days did not exist. You could get the rolls of tape, but there was no dispenser. For the brown paper tape, which you had to wet, and which he used a great deal, not only for packages, but for some of his hobbies, he made this large dispenser out of wood. This was a feature in the Los Angeles Times. Every day they showed the private lives of different famous people, and here they published this one on my father, and It's very funny because it says that my father composed in the midst of 3 children scampering about and rabbits and dogs and everything. But as you can see, he had a study which was very well protected from children, dogs, and rabbits. This is an array of pencils which my father put together so that we could draw the staves on these large pieces of butcher paper which he used to give his music examples to his Sunday classes at home. I think when my father was not composing, he was always inventing something and making something better or something useful for his, for his everyday life. And for instance, he made these rubber stamps. These are out of wood, and he actually carved his initials on there. There's another one, a bigger one. I can remember my father showing me this Bruckner award, which he had received. I think he was very proud of that. He didn't receive so many awards in his life, but this was something that meant a great deal to him. He did invent another inkwell, which keeps the ink at the right level so that you don't get too much ink on the nib. An American pupil, Ralph Ranger, paid a year's lesson in advance so that my father could have all of his furniture brought from Paris to Los Angeles. This piano, which was in his study, I hardly ever saw him play. He was not a pianist. But he did insist that all of his students must learn to use the piano. My father did not compose at the piano.